Welcome to yet another FPL video. Now, before I do the usual preview of Game Week 18 and the review of Game Week 17, it's important to look at the Carabao Cup and FA Cup fixtures. So keep an eye on them because depending on who goes through, just like Tottenham yesterday, for example, when they reached the Carabao Cup final, that's going to have implications for future game weeks. So, for example, Spurs could now play Fulham and Burnley, and if not, Fulham and Southampton in Game Week 26. So that makes them potentially a fantastic option to triple captain maybe Kane or Son. So keep that into account as well. And obviously another thing that I have to say, whatever transfers you make and obviously whatever you do, it ultimately is going to impact your final chip strategy towards the end. So whether you're holding your chips, whether you're playing some of them and then holding others, kind of similar to what I'm probably going to do, or if you're playing all of them, just take into account. And there's a lot of double game weeks and blank game weeks in future to navigate, and if there is even more postponement, which to be honest I think there will be, I obviously couldn't tell you when, but if there are more postponements, that means more double game weeks and more blank game weeks for certain teams, and so you have to be on top of all of that. And so saving some chips, in my opinion, is probably the best way to go about it. But obviously everything is team dependent. There's no set formula. Something that is fantastic for my team might not be very good for you. And it is what it is. And in Manchester City, even more COVID cases. I think one member of staff and then Scott Carson and another player, I think Palmer, he got it as well. So there's a lot of things to consider. And Man City, everyone bringing De Bruyne in already. And obviously I understand that with the price rises and stuff. And there was one yesterday for him. Just be careful because you never know, the game could be cancelled. And that's why I'm going to try to save my transfers up until the very end, unlike what I did last week. And speaking of last week, I did get 73 points and I did take a -4. And yeah, I took it for a bench player. I know that's a bit stupid, but I really wanted Dallas in. And I brought in Taylor initially and then he got injured. So yeah, I brought in Dallas. And in terms of, the actual players, the defense very mixed bag. Cancelo should have really got a clean sheet. But ultimately, in the last few seconds of the game, Hudson-Odoi scored a consolation goal. But Manchester City's defence, I was talking about it, very, very good. And with John Stones on the pitch, they went over 13 hours without conceding a goal, which is why I'm very tempted, even with the debacle at the end, I'm very tempted to double up on City's defence because they're by far the best at the moment. And you look at the fixtures up until Game Week 22, which is obviously in February. Just fantastic fixtures. Then they turn for the worse for quite a few games, but Manchester City can still keep clean sheets in some of those games. So Cancelo, I have to say, his attacking threat as well. He should have got an assist for De Bruyne, but his finishing was poor. But Cancelo, one of the best fullbacks in the league this season, if not the best. And the role that he's playing right now, I think I wouldn't say he's undroppable, but he's close to that. Behind the likes of De Bruyne, I think Cancelo should be one of the most nailed-on players for City with his performances and what he brings to Pep Guardiola's side. Looking at the rest of the defence, Martinez, something that I pointed out before I wildcarded in Game Week 6 to bring him in, he gets save points even when Villa concede multiple goals, and that coupled with the clean sheets he can get, the bonus points, even penalty saves that he's capable of, I just think he is the best goalkeeper to own, and of course he is the highest scoring goalkeeper so far this season, and he's got the double game week, he's not blanking in 18, so yeah, there's no real need to get rid of him despite the tough fixtures, but they do turn in Game Week 20, so Martinez, definitely no problems with him. Zuma though, I have to say I do have my reservations now about him. Chelsea have just been so poor recently. Zuma, obviously his goal threat has dried up. The last time he scored a goal was against Leeds, and Chelsea overall, I just don't know about all of their defenders, even Chilwell. I know that obviously they have some good fixtures like Fulham away, but that's a derby. Fulham will be right up for that. You never know what could happen there. And in most of the other games, I just don't expect clean sheets, and I don't know where the goals are going to come from Zuma. So he is someone I'm considering getting rid of, despite the fact that he has a double game week in 19, and he's obviously got one really good fixture in that game week 19 period. As for Soufal though, some of you were asking me, should I start him in the last live stream? And I did say, yeah, start Soufal. And I would even tell people who had Soufal and Fabianski to bench Fabianski. But of course, I didn't know that Fabianski would get injured in the warm-up. That's just a bit of bad luck for those owners. But yeah, Cresswell would obviously overshadow him because of his assist towards the end. But it was slightly lucky. And Soufal is still great value for money. I think they're definitely the two best choices from the West Ham defence. Balbuena would be the best or one of the best, but not too nailed there. And he could obviously be rotated from time to time, so I wouldn't recommend him. But Sufar and Creswell, very good fullbacks for West Ham, and yeah, they've been very good this season and just getting a lot of FPL points. And looking at the midfield and attack, which is obviously much more positive, obviously with a few exceptions, there are still some reservations I have. So with Salah, I look at it and it's a third blank in a row, but it is Salah. He's got 2 home games coming up in 19. He does blank in 18, unfortunately, but it's important to take into perspective. He still blanked the same amount of times as Bruno. So they've both blanked 5 times this season. They both played the exact same number of games. Because obviously Salah did miss a game against Leicester, I believe, because he had COVID. And Bruno obviously has the game in hand because of Manchester United starting in game week 2. So Salah is still a great option. And before the last 3 game weeks, he had only blanked pretty much twice when he's actually started. So Salah's still a fantastic option in my opinion. And I know his form has been horrible, and I will be talking about statistics later when talking about Salah to De Bruyne and a move that I could possibly make. But still, some of the statistics would also suggest that you should keep him, and they're still putting similar numbers to last season and also just to earlier this season when obviously he was flying. But still, Salah very disappointing, of course, and there is a reason why I haven't really considered him for captaincy, which is obviously something that I normally would. He'd be one of my first go-to captains, but you also have to analyse form, and at the moment he's not someone I would captain, but because of his overall quality and he can produce in any given moment, he is someone that you could still keep and not really regret doing that. Grealish, fantastic choice. A lot of people have told me to get rid of him, and he did get 2 bonus points. He was on for 3 at one point, but yeah, just a quality player, and he's almost at 100 points. And if we're being real, if he had finished his chances better, and if his teammates like El Ghazi, Watkins and Traore would finish his chances that were created obviously by Grealish better, then yeah, he would be on so many points. And for his price, there's no one better in my opinion. Just a quality player overall. And yeah, he's just doing it week in, week out. Of course, at home, that's where the concern is. He tends to haul away from home, but still a fantastic choice. And it's difficult to get rid of him. But one thing to consider is that he's 1 yellow card away from being suspended. So just keep an eye on that. Bruno Fernandes, once again, a dubious penalty against Aston Villa, just like last season, but he's getting the points. And yeah, he's just a fantastic player to captain every single week. He's pretty much the go-to captain at the moment, the most informed player. And over the last 4 game weeks, he has overtaken Salah as the highest scoring midfielder, obviously, with the exception of Son, who is, obviously, we'll get onto him in a minute. But yeah, Bruno Fernandes, fantastic player at the moment, and he's just carrying Man United and some great fixtures overall. He's definitely someone I would say definitely don't get rid of, and if you don't have him, get him in already. And even if, you know, you're thinking of Bruno or Kevin De Bruyne, for me it's still Bruno, and from an FPL perspective anyway, a better finisher, he'll get more goals, and in terms of chance creation, very similar to be honest, and he has created more chances I believe, but De Bruyne has missed a few games there, to be fair. So yeah, Bruno Fernandes, great player, and he's still getting the points. And he's someone that I was kind of worrying about, you know, oh, I didn't captain him, will Son do the business? But thankfully Son did. And yeah, at one point, obviously when Kane scored the penalty, I was thinking, no, I should have captained him, shouldn't I? But quickly Son put those doubts to ease. And yeah, he was one of the highest captain players this week, I think 4th overall. But he did the business. And the fixtures are very mixed for Spurs, but with that away game to Sheffield, and a lot of people will be taking out both Spurs assets, it is risky. I would still expect both of them to haul, or at least one of them to, and I would recommend keeping one Spurs player still, even if you want to obviously pile up on double game week players, because I just think that they offer such great value. And Son, I mean, in 9.8, in terms of price, I mean, he could easily be 10.5 at the moment. He's been exceptional this season. And he's the highest scoring player in FPL, and he doesn't take penalties. You look at Salah, you look at Vardy, Kane, Bruno, they all take penalties and they still have less points than him, which is remarkable, really. But yeah, happy to have gotten the captaincy right. That was 4 captaincy blanks in a row. I saw some of you say, obviously, that because you saw me captain Son, you would change it. But I'm just really happy that, you know, I captained my highest scoring player. It's been a long time since I've done that. And yeah, Son did the business. Kane as well. He has scored against all 30 teams that he has played against in the Premier League. And it was a penalty, but he also produced a really good assist for Son. And it's difficult, you know, when people say, who should I get rid of, Kane or Son? I mean, you can't really go wrong with either, keeping either of them, but you could go wrong with getting rid of one of them. But I do think Son offers maybe slightly better value for money, but then again, not too many great options up front compared to a midfield. But yeah, I would probably keep Son if you had to obviously keep one. But it's a difficult one. There's no easy answer. Kane is on penalties. He's been in great form. He's got the most goal contributions of any player. But you do get more points as a midfielder for scoring a goal. And you obviously get the clean sheet point, which Kane would not get, obviously. Calvert-Lewin has been really disappointing. And I'll be honest, I'm considering getting rid of him. But when I look down at the 6 million strikers, I'm not too convinced with any of them. Only Bamford, but I've already got him. And looking at double game weeks as well in mind, Antonio would be an option, but he breaks down so easily. He could get injured in one of those matches within game week 19, so it's a difficult one. And I do think that Calvert-Lewin will step it up again. Maybe not to the same degree as he did towards the beginning of the season, but when James Rodriguez came on, Everton looked like a much better team. And Everton have been very defensive recently, but I would expect a change in that. I would expect more goals to come in. Wolves is a difficult one, and I will be talking about the fixtures, obviously, like I did in my free hit video, but I'm not too sure with Calvert-Lewin. I've got a lot of question marks about him, but still, I am holding on to him. I do think that he will turn things around, and he may reward those who are patient with him, but it's hard to remain patient if obviously other options arise, and especially the cheaper ones. Danny Ings is someone you could move Calvert-Lewin to, and Ings obviously has the double game week, but then again, Ings doesn't have a game in Game Week 18, Calvert-Lewin does. So I wouldn't get rid of him now for Game Week 18 unless you're free hitting. But going into Game Week 19, it is a possibility. The only problem with that would be that the fixtures do turn slightly after Game Week 20, but they are very mixed, to be fair. And Everton just haven't shown too much recently for you to think that Calvert-Lewin is a must-have. And Bamford, some very poor finishes, very weak in terms of his conviction. Even the runs, no intensity really, no purpose. But for his price, really good, and great fixtures. Obviously, he does blank in 18, but after that, very good fixtures for a very long time, and of course has the double in Game Week 19, so not too concerned with him. I did take a -4 for Dallas, which is obviously stupid to do because I didn't even play him in the end. I didn't expect him to do anything, but yeah, I just really want him for the double game week, and I'm happy to have him. But yeah, it's just those big games for Leeds. I would definitely not put a Leeds defender in when they play the likes of, well, any top 6 side away from home, because they just tend to get battered. But against the lower teams, their defensive stats are much better, especially at home. And those 2 games in 19 look really, really good. And now the big problem, obviously, apart from Basuma being suspended for Game Week 18, and he couldn't even do that for me. The big problem, obviously, as you can see here, I've got 12 points sitting on my bench. Forster coming in for coming in for McCarthy, who had COVID, and then Walker-Peters, getting a clean sheet against Liverpool. I mean, he was lucky not to concede a penalty, to be fair, but a very good performance from him. And obviously, ideally, with Forster, he would retain his spot going into Game Week 19. He's 4 million, and there's no need to obviously take another -4 to get a second playing keeper in. But realistically, I do think McCarthy will get his spot back in Game Week 19. And of course, that would be unfortunate. What would be really annoying is if I went from Forster to Meslier or McCarthy, for example, on a -4, and then Forster ends up playing. And really, there would be no need to have taken that -4. But I do think that he will lose his spot. But of course, he's got 5 clean sheets in his last 6 appearances against Liverpool, which is really impressive. And it's been such a long time since he has played. I remember back in the 2014, 2016 seasons, he was very good for Southampton. But nowadays, he's the second choice. And apart from his kicking, which was very suspect, he was pretty good against Liverpool. I mean, didn't have too much to do, to be fair. But yeah, 12 points sitting on my bench. I couldn't believe it. But Liverpool have been very poor recently. Now, looking towards Game Week 18, obviously, ideally, you'd have a free hit. You'd have 11 players. In my case, I have 7. And I do believe if you have 7 or more, especially of real quality, like Cancelo, Bruno, Son, etc., of course, there's not much of a need to free hit. But if you have 6 or fewer, and you don't really have some of the key players like De Bruyne, Bruno, Kane, Son, then maybe I would consider it. Obviously, it's all team dependent, and it all depends, because maybe later down the line you can gain more points from the free hit. Because think of it, if you have 7 players in Game Week 18, but then you're going into Game Week 29, for example, with only 2, a free hit would probably gain you more points in game week 29. So there's other stuff to consider, and you could even use the free hit in a double game week and use it to be aggressive. And there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But in my case, at the moment, what I'm thinking is to save my free hit. And if I can, I may bench boost in 19. But it's a really difficult one, and I'll be explaining why. So in terms of the fixtures for some of my players, obviously having Martinez isn't ideal. I would probably change him on a free hit, as I showed in my free hit video. Cancelo I would definitely have. I would probably add another City defender, and then maybe an Arsenal, Man United defender. And looking at the midfield, it would be very similar, but I would probably have De Bruyne in as well, on top of Bruno and Son, and maybe even Rashford. And as for the attack, yeah, Kane, not too sure about Calvert-Lewin. Wolves do have one of the best defensive records at home, but Wolves have been very suspect recently. They haven't kept a clean sheet in the last 10 games, so that is something to think about as well. And I'd probably have someone like Wilson up front, if not Lacazette. So there's a few things I would change, but as you can tell, there's not too much I would change, not too much that I would add. But what I could do going into game week 18 is take a -4 and move Zuma to John Stones and move Salah to De Bruyne. So that is something I could do, and I could even captain De Bruyne. And some of you have asked me, should I captain Bruno or De Bruyne? You can't really go wrong. What I would say is that Bruno is the more reliable pick, and he's more likely to not blank. But De Bruyne is more explosive, considering the opponent, Manchester City's form, the fact that Brighton have no Basuma, and he is crucial to their midfield. And without him, I don't think Brighton really have too much protection, and not like they had great, protection anyway. And also, Brighton struggles so much from set pieces and crosses, and De Bruyne is obviously great at both, and he could get a few assists, that way. So those are all stuff to consider. I would probably say if you want someone that you can, rely on more so, it would be Bruno. But if you want more explosive potential and you want to just, risk it, then yeah, I would go for De Bruyne. But yeah, that is something I could do. If not, maybe just make one of those moves, whether it's Salah to De Bruyne and saving the other transfer, or doing Zuma to Stones and just keeping Salah. Those are both options I can do. And obviously the risk with that, getting rid of Salah before 2 home games in game week 19, very risky. And also Zuma's got a double game week, just like Salah. So it's not clear as day to make those moves, but I'm much more likely to take that -4 than to free hit, I think, because pretty much I'd be set. I'd be missing 2 players in my starting lineup. The rest would be of good quality. So yeah, it's a really difficult one. And like I said, there's no clear answer to should I free hit or should I not. But in my opinion, if you have 7 or more, especially of good quality players, try to save the free hit. Otherwise, yeah, consider using it. But that's how I'm looking at the moment. I would be captaining Bruno if I don't make any moves. But if I do bring in De Bruyne, it'd be between him and Bruno for the captaincy. And yeah, otherwise, Son is my vice captain, and not too much to think about there. And the main thing really is the free hit. A lot of people will be using it, and if you haven't already, check out my last video. I bring in some of the best players you can have, the best team. Of course, just don't copy it, but use it as, a platform to gain ideas. And some of the alternative picks that I show later in the video, you can add some of them. If you can't afford maybe the likes of Son or whatever and having the same defense or attack, you could maybe have some of the alternatives in there instead and have a mixture and have some really good, obviously highly owned players like Kane or De Bruyne, but you could also have some really good differentials. And there's even some that I didn't mention, like Foden or Gundogan. They could be really good for you. There's a lot of options going into game week 18, but ultimately you want to have the best ones or the most reliable ones. But 1 or 2 differentials could be really good for you. And like I said, with my transfer plans, I'm also thinking about game week 19 onwards and not just game week 18, because if I do make those moves, let's say Zuma out and Salah out for Stones and De Bruyne, if I want to bench boost in game week 19 to get rid of Basuma, Forster, who probably won't start as well, to get rid of both of them as well, it would be a -4, and it could be a -8 that we're looking at for game week 19, as well as a -4 in game week 18, because I'm not too sure if I'd have enough money for all of the moves that I want to make. So if we look now, for example, moving Salah to De Bruyne, and then we save a bit of money there, but I don't think it will be enough, because then we go here and let's get Souček, who should be going up in price very soon, by the way, so just bear that in mind. And then Zuma to Stones. Yeah, unfortunately, I just don't see this happening. I would have 4.4 million. I mean, I just put Zuma's name again. I mean, I don't want to get him back. Stones in, I would have 4.4 million remaining. You can't really get a second keeper. So that would be my dilemma, because I would want to have Souček as my 5th midfielder. And De Bruyne would obviously be really good. You know, I would have him for game week 18. And 19, he's got 2 home fixtures and great fixtures all the way to 22. And if you compare it to Liverpool and Salah, they have pretty poor fixtures all the way up until game week 24, I believe. So it's a difficult one, and it's impossible to own everyone. Of course, ideally, I would probably get rid of Kane and keep Salah, but I wouldn't have enough money to do that, as well as the additional moves I want to make, like Souček or a second goalkeeper, to really make use of the bench boost. So I'm in a bit of a dilemma. I would want to see your opinions on what I should do down in the comment section below, because at the moment, I don't know, just bench boosting just seems really difficult in my case. But, you know, one other thing I could do is just keep Salah and maybe just downgrade Kane to an Ings, or maybe to a Vardy, or if not, I could downgrade Calvert-Lewin to a 6 million striker like Antonio, Rodrigo, Watkins, Adams, etc. There's a lot of different routes I can go about, and that would give me enough money to have Souček in the middle to replace Basuma, and I could get either McCarthy or Meslier for Forster. But like I said, if Forster does play and I take a hit to get rid of him, that would obviously be really bad, but I don't think he will. And I would want to have double City defence going forward. It's not just a move for game week 18 or for game week 19, it's a long-term move. I do trust that defence, and if one of them do miss out, Cancelo or Stones, you would back the other to do so. And if not, if both of them are, you know, rested or whatever, I do have 3 other quality defenders to fill in for them. But of course, having triple City or any triple of any team is obviously going to be a risk, considering if a game is cancelled, you're literally missing 3 key players. But it is what it is, and there's a lot of different ways to go about it. I mean, as you can see in my case, it's really difficult to, you know, commit to a plan. Or to, you know, say, oh, this is the definite strategy you could go for, because getting rid of Salah could backfire, getting rid of Kane can backfire. There's a lot of different things that can go wrong, but also a lot of things that can go right. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below, what you think I should do with my transfers, and what you think of my team going into game week 18. And also, if you have any problems or any suggestions you want to make, or any suggestions you want to make for me, then just let me know down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Share this video around with those who love FPL. It really helps out the channel. And yeah, there's a lot of things to consider. Whatever you do now, as I said towards the beginning of the video, whatever you do now is going to obviously set you on a course in terms of what chip strategy you're going to have, when you're going to use other chips down later in the line. There's a lot of things to consider, but just try not to overthink it. I mean, I technically am doing it at the moment. There's a lot of different possibilities I'm considering, and that can cause you to be stuck. But also don't rush into a decision. And if you can help it, try to just wait it out, even if price rises happen. And because, you know, if you make a transfer now or take hits or use the free hit and then games are cancelled, you may regret it later down the line. So I would try to save transfers all the way down to the wire, because yeah, the situation at the moment is volatile and anything can happen. But thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.